Hey, wow, hey, this is Micah Herman, here to talk to you about structured query language, also known as SQL, also known as SQL. Let me just Google that real quick. SQL, structured query language, is a domain-specific language used in programming and designed for managing data held in relational database management systems. Or for stream processing in a relational stream management system. It is particularly useful in handling structured data where there are relations between different entities/variables of the data. And a bunch of other stuff that really doesn't matter too much. So I'm going to tell you about my learning experience with SQL, with the structured query language. It's super simple. All you got to do is just go to your computer, download the MySQL server installer package, go through just some basic easy steps, just click through some pages and just bring up a couple other things, and then once you've given up on that, you type in sqlfiddle.com on your Google Chrome browser and you use that instead because it's much easier. But let me give you an example, right, of SQL. So say for example you got this JRJ database here. It's got lots of data on customers, items, purchase items, purchase, vendor. This is a relational database with private and foreign keys that relate them together. And say that, for example, you would want to list the number of items by its description, but exclude those with less than 3 items. So then you just write up this quick little SQL statement, and you just put in something as simple as select count item.number, that's the table and then the column, as a num item, so that basically just means that's what you're going to call the new column that you're calculating. And then description, so you can group by the description there, we'll get to that. From customer, item, purchase vendor, that's all the tables. After you do the from statement with all the tables, then you do a where statement, and then you use that to join all the tables. So all the tables go together and you can pull things up as they relate to each other. And then group by description. This particular query has a aggregate function. So when you have an aggregate function, you got to group by something, which is basically everything in your select statement except for the aggregate function. And then the having is kind of like a where, but you use it with a group by and an aggregate function in that context. So your criteria in the having statement here is count item.number, which is again the table and then the column, greater than 3. So you see how this translates from English, list the number of items by description but exclude those 3 items, to this weird language that only computers understand. Then once you type all that in, just hit that run query button, and then realize that you forgot to close the parentheses, and then after that you hit the run query button again, and then when you realize that you spelled vendor wrong, go back and fix that. And once you fix that, you hit that run again, and then boom, you got your results, and they're the right results, and it's as simple as that. But that's enough about that. But what do I like about SQL? Well, what I like about SQL is that it's pretty easy to read. It's easy to understand. It's not, it doesn't take much brain power to understand what select from where means. It's very intuitive. It's just the thing is that it's very meticulous. So, for example, if you forget to put a semicolon, or if you get to put a parentheses, or you forget the group by or something like that, basically all of your work is just there's no result. What do you find interesting about it? Well, I guess I kind of already went over that. What I find interesting is that it's intuitive, but it's also not intuitive at the same time. I think it's a lot like Spanish for English speakers. It's like you can read it and kind of get an idea of what's going on as an English speaker, but if you were to try to say something in Spanish as an English speaker that doesn't have any experience in Spanish, you're going to have a really hard time. It's the same thing going from English to SQL, and SQL to English. Like the average person, I think, can read an SQL statement and kind of get a good idea of what it's saying, but if you were to ask them to replicate it, that's not happening. Unless they have some kind of, unless they took ISDS 402, they're probably not going to have a, great shot at that. Did you enjoy the topic or hate it? I hated SQL at first because I didn't understand it, and it frustrated me. But once I actually understood what was happening with the code and I figured out how to visualize things, like for example, just using select all from each table before I did anything would give me a really solid foundation to go from there. So I knew what I was working with, I knew what the data looked like. So once I knew what the data looked like and I knew how the language functioned, I really started to kind of gain momentum in learning how to use the language to query the databases. And hopefully, I haven't gotten my grade back yet, but hopefully the SQL portion of the final, I think I did pretty well on, because by that point I think I was pretty good at it. I know there's a couple things I did wrong, but that's, you know, I'm getting off on a tangent now. What do you think would have helped in learning more about the topic? I think what would have helped is just from the very beginning, I feel like I had a bad foundation. You know, I think that my learning style is very much learn by doing, and so when I was first taught SQL, just go out of the gate, it wasn't hands-on, it was just telling me things, and they kind of made sense, but it wasn't really, it didn't really kind of solidify in my brain until I actually started doing it, and then once, you know, if I didn't start doing it, I probably would have never understood it. So once I got a lot of practice with it, that's when the ball started rolling, if you will. How do you think this topic will relate to your career choice? You know, that's a very good question. I started this class thinking this whole SQL thing, this whole database management system thing. I thought it was kind of dumb, honestly, until I realized that once I did a little bit of research, that the exact field that I want to go into almost always requires experience with SQL, because I want to be a data analyst, and to me I thought like, oh, I'm not going to be a database administrator, so why do I need to know any of this? But actually I was very wrong about that. If I want to be a data analyst, and eventually I'd like to move on to data science, I'm really going to have to know SQL really well, and so that was kind of a big push for me to get better at it. Because at first I was like, I'm never going to use this, and then I realized that I actually am going to probably use this a lot, so... Okay, yeah, so that's it. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say about SQL, and that's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.